almost what became a sermon series where we're talking about distinctions between words, right? 2 weeks ago, I tried to talk about the distinction or understanding the difference between being blessed and fortunate. You know, that sometimes we're just plain fortunate and we interpret or misinterpret that as being blessed. And last week, I spoke about the difference between happiness or being happy and being joyful. You know, there's a difference between the two. Does anybody remember either of those sermons? Yeah? Do you remember them? Do you remember what the difference was? Anybody just kind of shout it out between happy and joyful? Anybody?
Short-term, long-term.
What?
Short-term, long-term.
Short-term, long-term. Okay, another one? Nobody here's happy. Joyful. Anybody? Come on. Purpose with joy. What's happy? Man, I'm going to have to preach those again. Somebody? Anybody? Happy was an emotional, quick thing. Joy is a long-term appreciation. Blessed is the same way. Blessed, to feel blessed, is simply an attitude, an approach to life. The things that we often say are blessings, we're just fortunate to have. Well, for the most part, and there were some people who were very, very excited about those things, I thought I'd continue. I'll drag it on one more Sunday because I want to look at the difference between being grateful and thankful. The difference between, the distinction between being a person who is grateful and a person who is thankful or thanksgiving. Think about that a minute. What's the difference? Now turn to the people around you and discuss it. I want you to talk to them. What's the difference? What's that mean to you? Go. Okay, somebody tell me what it means to be grateful. Anybody? What's it mean? Raise your hand if you know what it means to be grateful. All right, well, first of all, how many of you are grateful? Raise your hand. Now keep them up if you're also thankful. Okay, so tell me the difference. If there's no difference, we can just eliminate one out of our vocabulary. What's the difference? Somebody, what's it mean to be grateful? Yeah. What's that mean to be grateful to God?
So, for example, grateful to God for the stars in the sky.
Grateful to God for the stars in the sky. Okay. Another one? Thankful for a turkey dinner. Okay. Another? Grateful is long term. And thankful isn't? Okay. Another one? Anybody? Yeah. Grateful is general, thankful is specific. And one more. Yeah. I got one more. I thought I saw a hand. Yeah. Grateful is internal and thankful is outward towards someone else. Well, I think there is a distinction between the two, and it's maybe slight, but I think it's very, very important. And it's important not only in terms of how we speak, but how we think and how we act and how we interpret our faith. Gratitude, I would submit to you, is a feeling. To be grateful, you can be a grateful person in all kinds of circumstances and all kinds of situations. You can be grateful for the Spirit, for the joy, for all the good that's in your life. To be thankful is to express your gratitude in life. One's internal, one's external. I'm a grateful person, therefore I must be thanksgiving. It is an expression of how you feel, who you are, how you identify, how the Spirit moves within you. Gratitude is a way of looking at life, an appreciation of life. Thanksgiving is the expression of that perception. Gratitude is the appreciation of the air we breathe and the creation all around us, the stars, the sky, the beach, the sunset. Thanksgiving is all we do to preserve and to protect them. Because I have a grateful spirit, my thanksgiving is to act and to preserve God's creation. Gratitude is the reason you should come to church. You don't come to church to chalk it off in attendance, say, okay, God, got that one done this week. You come because you're grateful that you've made it through the week. You're grateful that whether it was good or bad or challenging, whether it was loss or gain, you come to give thanks that you're still here, you're still standing, you're still moving, you're still breathing. And you leave to give thanks for that and to act it out through the week that is to come. So one becomes more internal and one becomes an external expression of that. You can't have gratitude without thanksgiving, and you can't have thanksgiving without gratitude. Thanksgiving without gratitude is simply an obligatory act. People do that all the time, you know. You can write a big check to a charity and begrudge it the whole time. You know, there's an old story about Henry Ford that one time there was a hospital in England, in London, and he gave some money to help it get started, and the newspaper in London printed a thank you to him, and they printed, we wanted to thank Henry Ford for his $10,000 donation. And Henry Ford called back and said, you know, you got it wrong. It wasn't 10,000, it was only 1,000. And they said, well, we'll be glad to retract that and let everyone know. You see, you can give in an obligatory fashion, or you can give because that's who you are. You can't have one or the other. It's just like you can't have gratitude without thanksgiving. If you say you're a grateful person and you never show it, you never live it, you never give it, it becomes self-centered and selfish. And most of all, it becomes void and empty of the fullness that gratitude and thanksgiving. You know, that's something that comes around full circle. But it only goes part way if it doesn't have both characteristics. It is akin, I was trying to think of an illustration of this, it's akin, and of course you all know me, it's akin to a football team. You're all with me. Jerry, you with me? Not the Gators or the Huskers. We're going to leave them completely out of the conversation this time. But it's like a football team, right? And the ball is snapped to the quarterback, and he goes back, and all the linemen block, and the fullback blocks, and he goes back and he throws this wonderful spiral, almost the complete distance of the football field, and the receiver runs out and makes this tremendous catch, and the crowd goes crazy. The crowd goes crazy. And he is so enamored with that he stops and he bows and doesn't cross the line into the end zone. Everybody helped him get there, but he was simply concerned about himself. I hate shaving, always have. My wife hates beards. So in an effort to be nice and help, last Christmas she gave me this fancy shaving kit with a brush and cream, pre and after oil and lather and all that stuff. And it kind of looked really cool sitting on my bathroom shelf, kind of antique-ish, you know. But it's not worth much if you don't use it, right? You can appreciate it being there and how it looks, but until you put it to work, it really doesn't come full circle. And it's actually quite nice. So if we see ourselves as grateful individuals, if that's who we define I am a grateful person, appreciative of the good things in life, then there is a need for us to do self-evaluation. Self-evaluation and ask, how then am I living that out? How am I living out my identity of gratitude? What are we doing as an expression of the blessings we received? You know, there's a reason they call it thanksgiving. Because it's only half-baked, if not lived out. The psalmist says, we magnify God with thanksgiving. We magnify God with thanksgiving. It is a call to action, to magnify, to praise, to give thanks, to make God greater in a witness through our deeds and through our actions. You see, it's not about church attendance, it's about the way we live. What difference does it make? What difference does it make? Sitting on the beach out here, and I noticed that two people kind of ran into each other, and obviously they were acquainted. They must have been old friends, but the one was pretty happy, enjoying the walk, and the other was rather sad and gloomy looking, and so they reacquainted themselves, went up and said hello, and the happier one said to the gloomier one, "What's the matter? What's going on?" He says, "Oh, no, you know, this week my cousin died, and he left me $25,000. Wow, that's nice. The man said, why are you so sad? Well, you know, that's only part of it because, you know, then my aunt died and she left me $85,000 free and clear. And he goes, holy cow, then why are you so sad? Well, you know, then my grandmother died just yesterday and she left me $250,000. He says, well, why are you so sad? This week, nothing. Not very grateful, huh? And I suspect very lacking in thanksgiving. You know, we pick on, you like that, huh, Gail? You know, we pick a lot of times on professional athletes. You know, they seem to be easy fodder for, you know, acts and salary and overpaid. We do that a lot. But yesterday I was reading an article about Michael Vick. Do you remember Michael Vick? Played at Virginia Tech, went and played for the Atlanta Falcons, went to prison for dogfighting. He's been out of prison a few years now, and he played for a few years. I think he was with the Philadelphia Eagles for a while, and he's signed a contract now as an analyst. But none of that was significant. What caught my attention is that, you know, when he was arrested and everything, he filed for bankruptcy. And as of yesterday, he will have paid everyone back $30 million that lost because he declared bankruptcy. Now, that's not something he's obligated to do. There are a lot of people who do bankruptcy to avoid just that. But, you know, the comment he made was, I didn't want anyone else to suffer because of my actions. There's a spirit of gratitude that is very clearly painted in Thanksgiving. You know, a few weeks ago, many of you will recall, my brother had that brain aneurysm, and I flew out to be with him. Well, several weeks ago, I went out to see how he was doing, And, you can't get to western Nebraska very easy to begin with without a covered wagon. And so I flew into Denver, and I asked him, if he'd come pick me up. So he made the 3-hour drive to get me at the airport. When he picked me up, I was ready to go home and make the long trek back. And he says, well, wait a minute. We've got something to do. I want to go somewhere else. Well, where do you want to go? He says, well, I want to go back to Swedish Hospital. Well, is something wrong? Did you not tell me anything? Do you have to see a doctor? He said, no, I want to go back to Swedish Hospital. And I said, well, that's all the city traffic and everything, it's kind of out of the way. He says, I want to go back to City Hospital and take something to the nurses and the people who worked on the floor because of the care they gave me. He's nicer than me. No, I say that in a confessional sort of way. We look at it and we say, well, they're paid to do it. They do their job. That's the way it is. That wasn't enough. He was so grateful he had to give thanks. So he bought all these pastries and he bought all this food and he took it up to the 5th floor and he left it there and he came back with a big smile on his face. And not one pastry for me. Friends, we fool ourselves. I want you to hear me now. We fool ourselves when we think we're grateful and we do nothing as a response. Or when we look, what's the minimum we can do in response? How grateful are we really for our friends? How often do we take them for granted? Or do we do the little thing that we don't need to do with no expectations of something in return? How appreciative are we of our communities and our country if we never engage in the labors that make it better? How much do we really love the church, our church, when we fool ourselves into believing that someone else will give enough to make this place function? Someone else will take care of us. How much do we really love God when our understanding of God's blessings centers on just how God has blessed me, rather than, as the psalmist says, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. I was recently reading a colleague's stewardship sermon, because a lot of churches do stewardship at this time of year. And the preacher in this instance was saying to her congregation, what a discrepancy we have in our thinking and our culture when we'll go out and charge something at 18% interest, and yet most people give less than 2% to the church. We don't think twice about one, but the other is too much. No sermon would be good without a story about a parrot. Right? That's what someone told me after the first service. Anyway. A woman had a parrot in her kitchen that liked to cuss. Everybody should have a cussing parrot, right? It was right there in the kitchen. She thought it'd be nice to have it in a cage there where she'd get up in the morning. The parrot could say, hello, how are you? Nice to have you here. All those kinds of things. And it was sitting next to her refrigerator, one of those refrigerators with a freezer on top and the refrigerator on the bottom. But this parrot was a stinker, cussed all the time. And one morning she got up, she was a little grumpy, didn't have her cup of coffee. Things started cussing at her. She grabbed it out of the cage, opened the freezer, and threw it in. Realizing what she did, she opened it, took it out, and said, are you okay? Are you okay? And the parrot said, I just have one question. And she said, what is it? The parrot said, what did the turkey do? Ba-dum. That story has absolutely nothing to do with this sermon, except to remind us that our joy and happiness, our health and well-being, our home, our family, our worship, along with the feast many of you will participate in this week, also has nothing to do with thanksgiving if it doesn't lead us to literally give, share, and do more as a manifestation of our gratitude, our response to God's blessings, as a true and visible expression of our faith. I guess so. If you do something nice this week, you can say the parrot made me do it, right? It has absolutely nothing to do with anything unless there's an expression of what it means. In other words, we are all called to be the thanksgiving we celebrate. Otherwise, if we are not, Thanksgiving is just another day. Amen. We will continue